All right, guys, if this doesn't make you raise your eyebrows in regards to the situation that's going on in Venezuela, then I'm sure it will after you hear what I'm going to share with you. Trump to pardon ex Honduras president convicted of drug trafficking. I am not making that up. This is really happening. Donald Trump has said that he will pardon the former president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernández, who was convicted of drug trafficking charges in a U.S. court last year. The U.S. president said Hernandez has been, quote, treated very harshly and unfairly in a social media post announcing the move on Friday. Hernandez was found guilty in March 2024 of conspiring to import cocaine into the U.S. and possessing of machine guns. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison. So here we have a leader of a South American country, Hernandez, who was tried through a court of law in March of last year with evidence provided with a judge and a jury and everything through our judicial system, and was found guilty of conspiring to import cocaine and possession of machine guns. This is what due process does. We go through the legal system, evidence is presented, you are tried, convicted, and you are sentenced. Well, lo and behold, this is how it should be. Yet what we're doing in Venezuela today is the exact opposite of what happened in March of last year under the Biden administration. What we're doing right now in Venezuela is targeting boats, not providing any evidence, and blowing them to smithereens, and sending down Air Force carriers and B-52 bombers, and threatening with leaflets and closing the airspace, and threatening to make the leader of Venezuela, President Maduro, leave. Very different approach to how it's done the right way, which is how it was done with the president of Honduras. Now, you might be asking, why don't we do it that way? Well, that's a good question, and you should consider that very heavily, because perhaps the reason why we're dealing with Venezuela at all is not quite what the official narrative makes it out to be. Trump also threw his support behind conservative president candidate Nasry Tito Asfura in the Central American nation's general election, due to be held on Sunday. So this just happened yesterday. Early results do show that the conservative candidate is leading that race, but we're going to keep an eye on that and get you guys posted. Hernandez, a member of the National Party who served as Honduras' president from 2014 to 2022, was extradited to the U.S. in April 2022 to stand trial for running a violent drug trafficking conspiracy and helping to smuggle hundreds of tons of cocaine to the U.S. During his trial, prosecutors in New York said Hernandez ran the Central American country like a, quote, narco state and accepted millions of dollars in bribes from drug traffickers to shield them from the law. Mike, what do you think about Trump pardoning a convicted drug trafficking leader of another country in this insane situation that we have today with Venezuela?
I think it's extremely hypocritical to sit here and condemn Venezuela for all their drug trafficking and to just straight up murder people without any kind of due process, no trial, no evidence, no nothing, and to claim that we're doing all of this to keep our streets safe, or protect our citizens from all these evil drugs. But then we also pardon one of the biggest drug traffickers out there recently. It just doesn't make sense to me. Is it because it was cocaine and it wasn't fentanyl or something? I don't understand the logic behind this. And the White House doesn't seem to elaborate at all, at least from reports that I've seen. There's been no explanation as to why this man was even pardoned in the first place. I do think that it's great that you highlight this importance of how the Biden administration handled this. This is a former president of a nation, and we were able to get him extradited here to the U.S. to face charges, and we handled this all through law, and he was convicted, and he was in prison. So that is the correct way to do things for sure, and I don't understand why people would be against doing such things, because even if you argue, well, look, he got out, it's like, well, yeah, because the president pardoned him. If he wasn't being pardoned, he would still be in there. So I don't think you could really go down that line of logic. And the only thing that I could possibly think of is well, they waited until he wasn't president anymore. This is long after the crimes were done, and it's too late. You come in and you take him now, but you didn't get him while it was hot, while it was all moving. You could have stopped it, but you waited, and the law takes too long or something. We need vigilante justice. Like, I don't really know what kind of logic people could use for this. To me, it's irrelevant, because the law is the law. So you have to follow the law. Otherwise, if we just abandon the law, or we say the law is selective, then what's the point? It's rules for thee and not rules for me. And this is now, we're seeing more and more from this administration that every administration pardons criminals. Some pardon people who have been wrongfully convicted, but most pardon criminals. This is nothing necessarily new, but it is very interesting, the choices that were made. Not only do you have this drug trafficking situation, but you also have the pardonings with January 6 rioters, while also trying to, condemn and lock up Democrats for, protesting in liberal cities like Portland and whatnot. So it's there's a lot of hypocrisy going on. This is definitely the next new thing. So it's not really surprising, but it's always shocking, because it doesn't seem like there's ever a new low.
Yeah, given the elections that are being held as we speak in Honduras, this is the big theory as to why Trump is doing this now, is to influence and meddle in their democratic process. They currently have a conservative running, and he's so far, the election was held yesterday. So far in the early results, he's showing like he's in the lead. And this pardon of the member of his same party from Trump likely had a big impact. And this is why. The U.S. wants right-wing dictators and leaders and in other countries. They do not want left-wing leaders, because left-wing leaders fight for the people and fight for their country. Right-wing leaders like to sell out to the U.S. This is historically proven fact, and it's been going back over the past 100 years. You can go back over the past century and look at the situation in South America at large, from Chile to Guatemala to Argentina, almost every country in South America, save maybe two, you see this pattern where the U.S. kicks out left-wing leaders and it wants to install right-wing leaders, because they are usually more closely aligned with the U.S., and they give the U.S. special privileges to extract natural resources and other favors and stuff like that. So it's just one big undercover coup that's just kind of happening out in the open, but the mainstream media doesn't tend to report on it like that. So that's why we're here, trying to uncover all this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you bring up about the Honduras elections, because I wasn't even really aware that that was taking place. But surely that's got to play in a factor to this decision. And obviously, Trump wants as much regime change in that region as possible. You're absolutely right there as well. And we saw just the other day, Trump apparently issued a direct, it's being described as a blunt message to Maduro about giving him an ultimatum to leave. And he said something along the lines of, if you resign right here, right now, you and your loved ones can get safe passage out of the country. And this is all just intimidation to try to get another right-wing regime in, and to get rid of Maduro. So there's shenanigans going on in Honduras. There's shenanigans going on in Venezuela. And I'm sure other countries are also, under the gun as well.